I love Brandon Sanderson. Muse can vouch for that too. I've talked to her a bunch about the Stormlight archives and stuff like that. No, stop. But we're going to be watching a keynote from Brandon's, I think. Hang on, let me... This was 3 months ago, so I don't know exactly where this was from, but it came up on my feed yesterday, and I was like, I should watch that on stream, because we were talking about AI stuff, and how Brandon had worked with Shadiversity, and how Shad is very much a piece of shit, and how Jazza doesn't support that anymore, etc. I even linked that video in the Discord, but yeah. So we're going to watch this. This is Brandon Sanderson keynotes on the cost of AI. We are the art. Brandon Sanderson's keynote speech. I have not watched this yet, so I do not know what it'll entail, but yeah.
What has been on my mind lately? Some of you are going to be able to guess. In April 2010, film critic Roger Ebert, he made an infamous claim. He said, video games can never be art. Yeah, I know.
Yep.
His blog post set off this firestorm of discussion. I was there back then on the internet.
Also, how's the volume? You guys let me know.
Yeah, everyone was talking about it. Talking about kind of how he's an out-of-touch old man yelling at clouds. Maybe yelling at clouds that were actually shrubs.
Okay.
Mario joke. Some of you old-timers know that. I disagree profoundly with Mr. Ebert.
Yep.
But he was an intelligent, articulate scholar, and he had a better point than this clickbaity quote might imply. His argument was this: games are about mechanics and winning, not about aesthetic enjoyment. So if I'm going to summarize him too briefly, and he wrote a long blog post on this 2 years later, you can still look up on his website. I essentially said that while video games can contain art, such as an amazing digital painting, they are not at their core art.
Yep.
Because their focus is on obstacles to overcome in order to win.
Yep.
By being victory-focused, he argued they were an innately commercial product, like a toaster, and not able to be considered art. Now, I'm not going to spend this speech taking down an old essay by a man who's been dead for over a decade now. Anyone who deeply loves video games will know his argument just fails to understand what gaming is on a fundamental level. Those of us who are gamers know that the mechanics themselves can be part of the art. And in fact, video games let us tell stories that you couldn't tell in any other medium because the mechanics are part of that artistic experience.
Yep.
Winning isn't the art, but the emotions of winning can be part of it. Why do I bring this up? Well, my goal today is to tackle a few questions that Mr. Ebert raised, which I think are more important today than they've ever been, right? Because my goal is to talk about what is art and why we make it. Now, I know some of you are flinching right now, and you're thinking, Brandon's going to whinge about AI art again. But no, I'm going to whinge about AI art again with slides, so it's different.
Yay! Yay, slides!
In a more relevant way, I want to dig into my own feelings on this topic from a philosophical standpoint, right? The surge of large language models and generative AI raises questions that are fascinating. And even if I dislike how the movement is going in relating to writing and art, I want to learn from the experience of what's happening.
Yep.
We're being forced to ask ourselves about art in a way we never have before. Now, some do say we're in an AI bubble. Perhaps a collapse is coming. But even if it does come, I think what has happened so far is enough to force us to confront these questions of what is art, why do we make it? Now, I explore my ideas through writing. And so I ask you to join me for, these next 20 minutes or so as I explore this idea. And in so doing, help me figure out why I, Brandon Sanderson, rebel so strongly against the idea of AI art. And it was in writing this essay that I kind of figured it out.
Yay!
Anyone that heard this song? This was pretty big a few weeks back. This is Walk My Walk. It's an AI-generated song.
Ugh.
It was #1 song on Billboard's Digital Country Songs list.
I want to preface this before it gets into it, and I hope he brings it up, but during his secret projects, he also wrote a book that I feel tackles how artists feel about AI and like how it makes us feel and stuff. It's probably one of my favorite like single like book that he's written, and it's called Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. If you're into fantasy, I would say high fantasy. It's kind of like mid fantasy, um, but it's a one-off book and it's not a long series. And if you've never read a Brandon Sanderson book and you would like a starting point, I really suggest Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. It's just it's possibly like one of my favorite books he's ever written, and I'm like I cried at multiple parts of it. It's very good. It's very good. So, still arts, even though it's made with purpose to sell because it's made by a human. Yeah. I'm sure that'll be basically what it comes down to. Is it's human made. It's part of our existence. Is like making art. So, but yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, when it happened, everyone was like, "Wait, an AI song is number one." Billboard admitted that there had been 6 in the last few months that had topped their charts that had been generated by AI. In addition, earlier this year, author Mark Lawrence, one of my colleagues, is a fantasy novelist. He did a series of tests where he had AI write a passage and then had novelists do the same thing. Pretty short passages.
Good morning,
but the
Thunder.
test included our friend Robin Hobb, friend of the convention and fantastic writer, among others, including Mark Lawrence himself. He posted all of these passages without attributions and had people see if they could figure out which were written by authors and which he had had the generative AI create. And the results, which you can find on his blog, indicate that the audience couldn't tell the difference. Now, he quickly explains this isn't a very scientific test.
That's
and
correct.
AI is pretty bad at long-form storytelling right now.
Yep.
If you ask it to write a book, it does very poorly. But if it writes a passage, it
It's a little
can, in
different.
some situations, write prose that we can't tell. So this is why I say we are there. Even if the bubble happens and this all collapses, we are there. We have to be asking these questions right now because they can already imitate some of your favorite authors. When I hear of these 2 examples, Walk My Walk and the Mark Lawrence thing, my stomach turns.
Yep.
And I am worried, genuinely, that I'm against AI art just because it's new and unfamiliar.
No.
That I am the Roger Ebert in this case.
No.
And he was just in the last in a long line of artistic disbelievers. When prose began to be used for storytelling a lot instead of poetry, some considered its practitioners, many of whom were women, I'm sure that was just a coincidence, to be creating lesser art than those who wrote poetry.
Oh, yeah.
In the 1800s, critics explained that photography shouldn't count as art because it merely captured what already existed in the world. And in the early 1900s, some high-profile critics argued that film shouldn't be considered art because of how base a form of entertainment it was. And that's an argument I'm pretty sure that Mr. Ebert would have disagreed with vehemently.
Yep.
It stands to reason if all these critics were wrong, just as Mr. Ebert was wrong about video games, then maybe I'm wrong about AI. Isn't it just another form of expression? Some people certainly think so.
It is not.
What is art? Why do we make it? And why do I rebel against the use of it? Let me examine a few common objections. I want to start there, right? Do I dislike AI because of the economic and environmental impacts? Well, they do concern me, but if I'm answering honestly, I would still have a problem with it even if AI were not so resource hungry, right?
Yep.
Do I dislike it because the model's been trained on the works of artists in ways I consider unethical? Well, I don't like that, but even if it were trained using no copyrighted work, I'd still be concerned, right?
Yes.
I think we all would be. They're valid objections, but they don't get to the soul of it for me. Maybe I just hate the idea of a machine replacing a person. For a while, I've imagined that if we needed a heroic symbol of resistance against AI art, we actually have the perfect choice in American folklore. It's John Henry. Do you guys know the story of John Henry? John Henry's an American folk hero. He's a steel driver.
Yeah.
Steel driver was this job where they would have to cut holes through thick rock and make a tunnel for a railroad, and they do that by pounding a spike drill into a stone with a hammer and making a spot, and then people could put dynamite in that, right? So John Henry, the myth of John Henry, is of this man who was the best steel driver ever, and then
he beat that train.
steam-powered drill came along.
He beat it.
And he challenged that drill to a contest to drill a tunnel through stone and see who could do it faster. You might have seen the Disney interpretation of this. I watched it when I was a little kid. So he did it, right?
Yep.
John Henry was able to steel drive better than the drill, and then he died.
Yep, it killed
from
him.
exertion.
Mm-hmm.
This is a result I circle around because it seems the story illustrates what I have to acknowledge. John Henry beat the steam-powered drill, but it cost him his life.
But also, John Henry was doing a job that was a needed job, but not one that people like had passion for, I would say. That's the issue I have with AI being used to replace things that people truly enjoy. Like, it's part of what makes us human, is like creating and expressing ourselves through art, whatever medium of art you do, be it writing, be it music, be it painting, be it digital work, be it crochet, be it needlepoint, like whatever you do, it's you expressing yourself. So yeah. So, and that's what the difference I feel is. Where John Henry was a tale of industrial like revolution coming and replacing jobs, those are jobs that do physically like take a toll. And sure, there's some art forms that do as well, but it is us choosing to express ourselves in that way. I don't know of many people that would say that like they want to be a still driver. They want to do that with their life. So, yeah. Yeah.
And while he proved he could beat a steam-powered drill personally, he didn't change the world.
Mm-hmm.
We respect him, but as a society, we chose the steam drill, right?
Yeah, I mean...
And I would too. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not sure that I fully dislike AI just because it's replacing a human. It's getting closer to the reason, but there's more.
Mm-hmm.
Truth is, I'm more than happy to have steam engines drilling tunnels for me to drive through.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even dislike AI because it's poorly done, because as we've shown, not all AI can I even tell what is good and what isn't, what is machine and what isn't. I hope I can tell what is good. I've listened to Walk My Walk, and it's catchy. I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference between it and a human-made song. I read the Mark Lawrence test, and I couldn't tell which one was Robin Hobb and which one was AI.
Again, it was just
so what?
A phrase or like a paragraph.
Why does it bother me so much? Like a lot of things, we can look to Star Trek for help.
Yeah!
I am a nerd, after all. So my Star Trek was Next Generation. I'd stay up late at night, and I'd watch it because it was at 11 o'clock. And my mom would want me to turn off my TV because it was 11 o'clock Sunday, so there was school the next day. And
it's true.
I was watching Star Trek. Got to watch my Star Trek. In Star Trek Next Generation, we got Data, right? He's an android.
Yeah!
And a lot of his character arcs were about exploring what it means to be human. One of the recurring themes in the show was his attempts to create art, painting, poetry, music.
And he touches on that
Become a comedian, take my wharf, please. Classic line. I rooted for Data, a synthetic being without emotions, trying so hard to understand the human experience, and I still...
And so that's the difference, though. Data wants to feel those human emotions. AI learning, quote-unquote, doesn't. It doesn't think. It doesn't feel. It doesn't want to create. It's just made to do that.
Still do. I have no problem with Data creating art. If he were real, I'd applaud him. Why do I empathize with Data, yet not the AI large language models? This question, this starts to get to the core of the issue for me. One of my favorite essays comes from the preface to The Picture of Dorian Gray. In it, Oscar Wilde, with characteristic wit, argues about a great number of things. I recommend it. It's only a page long. The book is fantastic too, but I've always preferred the prologue to almost anything else he's written. It ends with these lines. We can forgive a man for making a useful thing as long as he does not admire it. The only excuse for making a useless thing is that one admires it intensely. All art is quite useless. Now, of course, this is Oscar Wilde being a little bit silly. He tended to do that. He took lobsters
that's Oscar
on walks.
Wilde.
But if you look at this idea, there is a point to making art that doesn't have to do with its usefulness. It doesn't have to do with what you can sell it for. It has to do with the intrinsic need to make art.
Yep.
I do think that part of the reason I dislike AI is because it is too focused on the product and not the process.
Yep.
Yes, the message is journey before destination.
Yeah!
It is always journey before destination.
That's right!
But there's a specific take on it this time. This is a page in my first book. We had these on display at the World Hopper Ball. I don't know if they're out this year, but they might be. I wrote them longhand in these giant notebooks in Korea. We call this White Sand Prime. I started on it when I was 19, and it's not very good. It's one part ripoff of Dune,
Yep.
one part ripoff of Les Miserables, and one part ripoff of The Wheel of Time. But I wrote it. I did it
You
myself,
made something.
first word to last word, and there's a seed of something there that is all me. Part of this tale is the story of a young man, or a man who is weaker at magic than everyone else, and has to learn to win by finesse and understanding how said magic works, instead of by raw power. And that's a very Brandon sort of thing.
Yeah,
isn't
it is a Brandon
I
sort
would
of
much
thing,
later
for
write
sure.
a better version of this story, which we turned into the White Sand graphic novel. That said, I have no question that using the language models currently released, everyone in this audience could prompt AI to create a book that is better than White Sand Prime. It is truly awful. But here, this is a picture of my second book, Star's End. Isaac actually made me a print edition of it at one point, just as kind of a gift to me. This book also leans along on authors I'd read before, but the me is more apparent. In my third book, I return to the world of White Sand, and suddenly, it starts to feel original. The plots are tighter, and the characterization's more solid. The world building goes beyond its influences. In my fourth book, Nightlife, I experimented with twists and started to develop my style of the Sanderlanche. And in my fifth book, The Sixth Incarnation of Pandora, I started experimenting with theme, specifically in relation to the books I'd read before, laying the foundation for me telling stories that are in conversation with the legacy of science fiction and fantasy I'd read, rather than just copying that legacy.
Because you were learning.
Finally, we reached Launches, where I brought all this together. This is when I emerged for the first time as the author I would become. A fully realized fantasy epic, applying all the lessons I learned so far. After Elantris, I started to create the Cosmere, eventually landing at Mistborn and the Stormlight Archive. Maybe someday, the language models will be able to write books better than I can. But here's the thing. Using those models in such a way absolutely misses the point, because it looks at art only as a product. Why did I write White Sand Prime? It wasn't to produce a book to sell. I knew at the time that I wasn't going to write a book that was going to sell. It was for the satisfaction of having written a novel and feeling the accomplishment in learning how to do it. I tell you right now, if you've never finished a project on this level, it's one of the most sweet and beautiful and transcendent moments in my life was holding that manuscript. Thinking to myself, I did it. I did it. This is the difference between data and a large language model, at least the ones operating right now.
Yeah.
Data created art because he wanted to grow.
He wanted to
He wanted to become something. He wanted to understand. Art is the means by which we become what we want to be. The purpose of writing all those books in my earlier years wasn't to produce something I could sell. It was to turn me into someone who could create great art. It took an amateur and it made him a professional. I think this is why I rebel against the AI art products so much, because they steal the opportunity for growth from us.
Yep.
When prose came along, people didn't stop writing poetry. Photography didn't kill painting, and film didn't kill the stage play.
Yep.
Video might have killed the radio star. Video games didn't kill film. But how many steel driving men do you see these days? John Henry died and was replaced by a machine that could do his job, but he proved something important about the human spirit. Where will we go when there is no room for humans in art? You might say, well, if the AI gets good enough and the product is the same, what's the difference? The difference is that the books aren't the product. They aren't the art, not completely. And this is the point. The most important thing to understand is that the process of creating art makes art of you. My friends, let me repeat that. The book, the painting, the film script is not the only art. It's important, but in a way it's a receipt. It's a diploma. The book you write, the painting you create, the music you compose is important and artistic, but it's also a mark of proof that you have done the work to learn, because in the end of it all, you are the art. The most important change made by an artistic endeavor is the change it makes in you. The most important emotions are the ones you feel when writing that story and holding the completed work. I don't care if the AI can create something that is better than what we can create. because it cannot be changed by that creation. Writing
body
a
is the
prompt
temple
for
and
an
I am an
LLM,
art.
even refining what it spits out, will not make an artist of you, because if you haven't done the hard part, if you haven't watched a book spiral completely out of control, if you haven't written something you thought was wonderful and then had readers get completely lost because your narrative chops aren't strong enough, if you haven't beat your head against the wall of dead ends on a story day after day until you break it down and find the unexpected path, you're not going to have the skill to refine that prompt. The machine will have done the hard part for you, and it doesn't care. It could be writing a shopping list or a story about the death of a family member. It cannot be changed. It can be changed by feeding it more copyrighted material, but creating the new work will not change it. It will not learn, it will not grow, it will not care. Art is useless, as Oscar Wilde said. Therefore, we have the power here and not the machine, for it was created to try to make something useful, but it cannot admire what it made. For a long while, I thought our position was the same as John Henry, that we were inevitably going to lose. But I'm starting to think that we don't have to. 15 years ago, Roger Ebert made a well-reasoned but ultimately uninformed statement. How many of you here think he was wrong, that video games can be art?
Me.
You're right, not because I say it, but because we as a society say it. That's the great thing about art. We define it, and we give it meaning. The machines can spit out manuscript after manuscript after manuscript. They can pile them to the pillars of heaven itself. But all we have to do is say no. If we do, they lose. John Henry couldn't ultimately stop the steam-powered machine, but we can fight the battle and we can win because we get to choose what victory looks like. What is art? Art is what we define it to be. Why do we make art? Well, remember, art is not just the story. It is not just the painting or the sculpture or whatever else you love to create. It's also the process of creation and what that process did to you. We make art because we can't help it. It's part of us. We understand what it is. We are drawn to it because we are of the same substance. We are the arts. Thank you.
I didn't need to cry today, okay? Like, I didn't need that, but thanks. Again, if you guys haven't read Brandon Sanderson's works, I really do suggest it if you like fantasy. He does have some sci-fi stuff as well. Again, if you're as passionate as I am about the AI stuff, I really do suggest You, Me, and the Nightmare Painter. I've been on another VTuber's book podcast talking about it even. It really does, like, examine that, and I think a way that, like, a lot of people maybe don't, because, yeah, it's really good, okay? It's really good. He has superhero books too, yes, of course. He has a lot of types of books. He has fantasy, sci-fi, superhero. He does children's books. He actually did a Kickstarter recently for several children's books that I backed, because I love Brandon's work. And he's always been very creator-oriented when it comes to stuff like art and whatnot. Like, most of his book covers are traditional paintings, and he's had, like, gallery shows and, like, shown off the artists for that stuff. He's very proud of the art that he gets commissioned to do for his book covers and works inside the books. He has, like, a specific artist that does the sketches for one of the characters, so it looks consistent through the books, because she draws, and she's a artist as well, in the Stormlight Archive series. But yeah, Brandon Sanderson is probably my favorite modern author. So, I actually have, my newest book I need to read is by him. It's a bunch of short stories that are, I think they're sci-fi. They're sci-fi related ones. So, and I don't normally read sci-fi, so that, I know, I'm just, like, I'm glazing Brandon Sanderson, but, like, seriously, no matter the genre of books you read, I would suggest trying to find something that he has written in that genre and just read it and see if you like it. The whole reason I got super into him was he does the thing that I always used to do in my head as like a kid, and even until I was a young adult, where like I would try and tie books together and try and make sense in my head of like why like the universe from book A would partner up with book B, etc. And so like he does that. That's good. Hopefully there's more things that you guys also agree on. But yeah, Mr. Husband is also very much against AI. We've both seen it in, obviously, as a full-time freelance artist. Like I've been saying since it first started coming out that this was a danger thing for art, and so many people told us it wasn't and that we shouldn't worry about it, and it's like, okay, fuck you. I remember writers telling me that I was worried for nothing. I remember musicians telling me I was worried for nothing. So, Stormlight Archive is amazing too. Yeah, I mean, like, I love all of his book series. So, the Mistborn series was such a good read. He got me The Gentleman Bastard, Skylinch, and the Kingkiller Chronicles. Ooh, is the Kingkiller Chronicles? That's, Patrick Rothfuss, right? So, Brent Weeks is one of my favorite with the blinding knife. You're never gonna get that last book, Corgi. I'm just telling you. You're never gonna get that last book. That man has detoured so fucking hard on his life. Not in a bad way. He's just like, I don't know. Like he's doing the thing where he's like, it has to be perfect now, and it's like, it didn't have to be if you hadn't taken this long. I'm just saying. Like, you're the one that's putting this pressure on you. I think a lot of us would just be happy if it was done. But yeah. Oh no, definitely. Riley, that's my point. Is I remember when it was generative AI was just doing art stuff, and I was told by writers and musicians that like, oh, it's not that bad. It's not gonna take your job. It's fine. And it's like, what you saying now? The hole has been dug and you found yourself in it. Yes, exactly. But yeah, no, Brandon Sanderson is great. I really like Brent Weeks. His Blinding Knife series is very, very good. He writes a lot of things that a lot of people don't talk about, like the human body and stuff, which is really interesting to me. Also another high fantasy. I'm a big Jim Butcher fan. I love the Dresden Files specifically. I don't read a ton of book series. I read more manga than I do books, but those are like the three that I point to when people ask me like who I like to read. And it's Brandon Sanderson, Brent Weeks, and Jim Butcher in that order. I like Patrick Rothfuss. The Slow Song of Nothing, I think, was the one short book that he did that I really liked. But I feel so bad for Mr. Husband because that's his favorite author, and so I just like poke at him every once in a while when I get a new book from either Brandon or Jim, and I'm like, where's that third Patrick Rothfuss book? When's that coming out? Hey? Oh, we got the fifth Stormlight Archive book. So yeah, I kind of just poke at him because of that. So the last book I read was a Warhammer book. See, I've read more books than what I'm saying. Those are just the ones that like I can point to and say like these are authors I specifically like. I started listening to was it Red Wings? I think that's the name of it. Mr. Husband really liked it, and so I was starting to listen to that one. I love that Jim Butcher hates Dresden. He makes his books because he loves beating the shit out of that man. I know, right? Like, fuck your feelings! Fuck your feelings! I really hate it because I was listening to the newest book whenever I went out to Texas for the latest convention, and I didn't realize how sad I was gonna be, so I was crying before the flight took off because I was just like, alright, I got settled into my seat, I'm here, let me put my audiobook on, and then I'm like, I forgot what happened in the last book, and now we're having to deal with it. So yeah. I need to read a Warhammer book. Oh, fuck, what is the one that I really liked? Oh, Lucas the Trickster. That's the name, and it's the Space Wolves. Lucas the Trickster is like my favorite Warhammer book. I'm more of an audiobook person. Same. I have very few physical books because I read a lot. I listen to a lot of stuff just because I can do other stuff. But I do own several physical books and have read physical books. I have the physical one from Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. That was actually a gift from Throne. Somebody from Throne got that for me. Thank you guys again. I also have like Bram Stoker's Dracula. I have the one that I was talking about from Jim Butcher. That's like a collection of the science fiction short stories. And it's just I'm getting more books because I want to kind of detach from the computer and phone for a bit. So I'm trying to get more physical media. So, and audiobooks are good for like when I'm driving or doing something else, but not like solely focusing on it. So I have The Infinite and the Divine I need to read. Yee. But I also own, I have 2 copies of Tolkien's Hobbit, specifically because the paperback one got ripped. And I think somebody bought me the hardback one as a gift because my Hobbit got ripped. It's probably the only book that I've read multiple times. What is this one? The Furies of Calderon is the one Jim Butcher book that I own. Oh, here, I have the Patrick Rothfuss one. It's The Slow Regard of Silent Things. That's the Patrick Rothfuss one that I own the physical book of. And that is it's so beautifully written, and I wish because of that, he'd write other things and do other things. But no, he can't finish the one series. I need to read Rhythm and War. Corgi, get on it! Okay, you have a good one, Cal. Thank you for hanging out while you could. Get on it. Read the Rhythm of War. Rhythm of War and Wind. Yeah, do it. Gotta get it done. See you tomorrow, Cal. Thank you for hanging out while you could. I do appreciate it. But yeah, this just gave me an excuse to gush about Brandon Sanderson and his writing and stuff, and just talk about books for a little bit and take a break from drawing. I've been reading a book lately that with my hubby, but I can't disclose much other than that. Okay. Alrighty. I'm so behind. 2020 was when I lost my efforts to read. It sucks. I'm telling you, audiobooks really do help. Because I used to be the same way. Like, I had no ambition to read. And then, I think it was the Dresden Files. Our friends, the 3rd book had just come out, and our friends were like, you guys need to read this. And we both, Mr. Husband and I, were kind of like, we don't have the time. And so they were just like, do you guys have like stuff you could listen to an audiobook on? And we were like, yeah. And so they were like, here, take these 3. We're gifting it to you. You guys listen to these and then come back. And oh my god. It got me so much back into reading and like wanting to hear stories again. It was soon after that we got into like Brent Weeks, and I still think Brent Weeks is probably one of those authors that I wish he'd write more, but I'm also glad that like he finished his story. So yeah. I've always been a very big fantasy person, so like that's what I like, but I like superhero and sci-fi too to a certain extent. But yeah. It really helps when you have a good voice actor for the audiobooks. Yeah, just like all of the Stormlight Archive being a husband and wife duo that do amazing work in the audiobooks. They do such a good job. And then also like the Spike Spike from Buffy reads the Dresden Files, so just saying, it's also a good voice actor. Yeah, he's also a very good voice actor. I want to say Red Rising. That's the name of the new one that I've been listening to. Red Rising also has a good voice reader, so I have my own internal idea of their voices. I get that, and I still think that like I can have that because like I definitely think Kaladin sounds different than like the audiobook reader. But, oh my goodness, I cannot think of another voice for Hoyd. Like, that is Hoyd's voice to me, and I love it so much, so. Eragon? I don't know that I've read that one. Yeah, you're not too picky about the type of book? Yeah. It just has to be well written, I feel like, for me. But fantasy has just always been the one that I go to. I know it's a big thing right now, and I liked the first few books of Dungeon Crawler Carl, but, like, I think it was book 4 that kind of fell off for me, and I don't know. People are like, yeah, book 4 is not that great, but then it gets better in the next book, and I'm kind of like, well, it's killed it for me, so I don't want to have to slog through a book that I don't like to then get to the next one, so it's kind of sad for me, but, you know, whatever. Alright, you guys. We've talked about books for long enough.